Hey guys, it's Vera Wylde, and I am back with some more tips for beginning cross-dressers. This time, it's going to be a little bit different, I think. I just want to say a couple of things about sexual orientation, because I know that's something that can get very confusing for a lot of us, especially in the early days, because for the most part, sexual orientation, gay, bi, straight, is fairly straightforward. Either you're attracted to the same sex, the opposite sex, or both. However, when your own gender lines begin to blur a little bit, that can start to make things kind of muddled. And it can cause a lot of confusion, a lot of uncertainty for many of us. And I know I went through that to a certain extent in my earlier days of dressing. So there's a couple of things that I want to say that maybe will help you know straighten things up, or at least put you in a position where determining your own sexual orientation will be made a little bit easier. For myself, for a little context, I do consider myself to be straight. I am married to a woman. So I do consider myself to be straight, but obviously I do dress as a woman. However, I'm not transitioning. I don't live full time as a woman. So I don't, in that way, I don't consider myself to be a lesbian. I consider myself to be a straight man who does do all this. Now, for a lot of us, I think what tends to start to muddle things in a way is when you first start dressing, even much later when you're dressing, we really tend to crave approval and acknowledgement of us as feminine, and some sort of support for that. And the easiest way for us to get that is from men who find us sexually attractive. And that kind of feeds a need, and it can lead to a bit of a trap where people, some of us who may actually not have that sort of sexual orientation where we gravitate toward men normally, find ourselves being pulled that way because we're loving the attention that certain men give us. The thing to remember is, just because you are sort of getting that thrill from interaction from a man, and a man who finds you sexy, does not necessarily mean that your sexual orientation is for men. Of course, it doesn't mean that it's not either. It very well could be. But I know that was a big part of my own confusion for a time. I thought that I must be gay, or I must be at least bisexual, because I was craving the attention and the approval of these men. Yet it wasn't really clicking as a sexual preference, and it took me a long time to kind of come to terms with that. Um, and obviously there's the other ends of things, and things get can get a little bit more muddled if this is more than just dressing for you, and it does become a matter of transitioning. But I mean, the thing to remember is, just set the labels aside. What do you find attractive? Who are you attracted to? Strip all this out of that. When you're asking that question, don't go, I'm a crossdresser and what am I attracted to? No, you're a person, like any person. How you dress, how you identify in your gender does not matter. All that matters is what you want. And if you just strip the rest of that out of it and just look deep down and see, what am I attracted to? Setting all this aside, what am I attracted to? That's probably going to be your answer for what your sexual orientation is. And all of this factors into who you are as a person, but not necessarily who you are as a sexual being. For many of us, this doesn't even enter into the bedroom at all, and this is not a sexual thing. We obviously can feel very sexy while doing it, but that doesn't make it a sexual act. Obviously, there's other of us who do this as more of a fetish, and it is a way to get off, and it is a more integral part of our sex life. But even in that case, you shouldn't let that sway you in trying to determine for yourself, are you gay, are you straight? The only thing that determines that is, what gender are you attracted to? So strip the rest of this away and just ask that very simply and very plainly of yourself. and you may find you still need some time to figure that out, but try and simplify the question, because the more sort of baggage that you pile on with all the dressing and the makeup and your own gender identity, it can just lead to a lot of confusion, and it can lead to things happening that you may end up regretting later. You may realize very quickly you found yourself in a situation you don't want to be in, and it being that kind of muddled about your own sexual orientation, that confused about it, can put you in a very vulnerable position. So it's never an easy thing to figure out, but adding all this on top of it can make it much more complicated. So when you're trying to figure that out, do just try and stick to what are you attracted to. Answer that question, and that's probably what your orientation is. As far as your sexual preference goes, at any rate, your actual gender orientation may be much more complicated. You may want to transition. This may be strictly a bedroom thing for you. You may be more like me, where you do this fully, you do go out in public like this, but it's not the majority of your time spent like this. And there's all sorts of gradations as far as your gender identity goes. And admittedly, there are more than just the 3 types of sexual orientation of gay, bi, or straight. But if you can sort of figure out which fits you best, you can find your exact placement in that spectrum a little bit later, but sort of find the ballpark first, and then get the specifics a little bit later. That might have turned into a little bit of a ramble. I'm not sure how helpful that's actually going to be, but hopefully some of you do find that useful and find that helpful. So thanks again for watching. Until next time.